Echo 5, do you copy? Echo 5.
Echo 2, good morning. Nice of you to drop by.
Feeling alright, sir? Thought we lost you.
Right now, I feel like I can take on this whole podcast myself.
I know what you mean. Ready to send that transmission to Echo Base?
Yes, sir. R10, patch through.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hoth Transmissions. Tonight we have a special guest with us.
Hello there. This is just Matthew here. I'm grateful to be here and talk about Star Wars.
Perfect. Yeah, so he's going to be co-hosting with me tonight. We're going to be talking about the Phantom Menace. We're just going to do our review of it. I know we've been doing a lot of the TV shows and stuff, and so we're really excited to jump into the movies and kind of really get into it. So, all right. So, the Phantom Menace. This one's kind of the ones that got me back into Star Wars because I remember, like, back in the day, I was a huge original trilogy fan, and then they announced that they're doing not a sequel, a prequel. And I was like, oh, what are they gonna do a prequel on? And then I saw that first trailer, and oh my gosh, it was pretty exciting. And so, for me, jumping back into this movie always runs in a bunch of nostalgic feelings. What did you think of the opening scene of the movie?
The opening scene?
Yeah.
Well, I would say it's I wouldn't like describe it maybe as grand, like epic as what happened in A New Hope, where we see this massive Star Destroyer come on the big screen, and it's like, wow, immediately thrown into this, fascinating universe. Not to say it's a bad introduction. It's more like a casual, like you already know what type of universe you're getting into, but at the same time, it delivers a different feeling towards, the whole story. But also feels very similar as well, since we see a character we're familiar with, young Obi-Wan Kenobi as a Padawan. And we're also introduced to, Qui-Gon Jinn while they're on the, just on the separatist, ship to talk about the negotiations, with the Viceroy and all that stuff. So it was a pretty good start to everything. I think it was a good way to bring the fans back into the universe that, that the original trilogy had created, basically.
Oh, I agree 100%. Because we jump into like the original trilogy, we're familiar with like the opening crawl, and then it's like the Star Destroyer and all that. And so this was kind of a little different from what a lot of fans are used to. And I agree, like it was just really interesting just to see how it started. Like you jump onto the Strange Federation, not knowing what to expect. And then here comes in a young Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and it's like, okay, all right. So what story are they gonna tell? And then you get, and I didn't really expect them to introduce Darth Sidious so quickly into the franchise. I thought it was gonna take maybe like half the movie, but now they're like, all right, well, this guy's here. He knows the Jedi are there. Get rid of him.
Oh yeah, I actually think introducing him so early, now that I rethink about it, it's a very, really good and clever move on George's part as a way to show the audience, like, even if this was not intentionally implied or anything like that, just as time went on, this developed into something good of how it shows how the Emperor has been there since, the very beginning. He's been behind the scenes, pulling the strings. He's the puppet master, and this is his game from the start. And I just really like that type of sinister and chilling vibe that brings to it by bringing him in so quickly into this new trilogy, saying like, hey, he's still here and he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and they kind of like darken his face a little bit. Like, oh, who's this guy? Darth Sidious, okay. But I mean, every fan already knew it was Emperor Palpatine from the start. If you know Star Wars, you know who he was, unless it was the first time you're watching Star Wars. And it's pretty cool because I wasn't really expecting to have an apprentice, or I don't know, when I first saw this movie, I wasn't really expecting, but going back onto it was just super cool, especially seeing Darth Maul for the first time. What a sinister looking character. I just remember seeing him, and it's like, I have not seen a character like that in Star Wars. This guy looks really terrifying.
Indeed, that was another great thing that the Phantom Menace helped kick off. New, alien species, new types of lightsabers, new creatures, new planets, just new characters in general, expanding upon the world of Star Wars while also showing that it's like you still have the same feeling that this is the Star Wars universe that you know and love for the past years and decades. But it's also willing to introduce new things that are still playing by the rules of the lore that were originally established, but adding on to them in clever and new creative ways.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a lot of that in the High Republic right now, and they're really expanding the story.
I admit I haven't really been keeping up much with the High Republic. It's not really my cup of tea. But I also know that they did do a lot of that similar things with the Old Republic in a way. So like everybody's High Republic these days is well, like mine is still the Old Republic. You know, that's where my passion for Star Wars belongs. That's where I feel like Star Wars really thrives in terms of knowledge
Yeah,
and expanding upon other forms of media.
yeah, and that's kind of some stuff that I expected. It's like, okay, you have these Jedi. I kind of expected them to be more involved against the Sith. It's like, okay, so we got Darth Vader, we got the Emperor Palpatine, we got these mysterious dark side users. Okay, cool. Jump into the prequels, and the first thing that we see that the Jedi are dealing with is a trade dispute. I was like, man, what a lame way to use the Jedi.
Oh yeah,
And
I remember that one of the early controversies, and still to this day, sometimes I hear criticisms of the Phantom Menace, is how like slow it can be at times in terms of the like conversations plot wise, because it's very much it dives into the politics of that world, like between separatist trade federations, the Republic, and how they handle trades and shipping, goods and all that stuff throughout the universe. So I understand to a degree, why that can be like somewhat of a, turn off to Star Wars fans, because, the original trilogy never really focused on that. And that's really kind of like a slow aspect of the world. But I think as time went on, it is crucial that those elements are there because with this world that has been established, and how we saw in the original trilogy that the Empire is this massive force that has been built up over time. It makes sense how the politics played out in those movies and in the Clone Wars. It makes sense for them to be there and show how the Emperor got the power that he did and was able to conquer the galaxy and with the clone army and so forth.
oh yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes with that whole thing of like the Jedi being like arrogant and ignorant of everything that's going on. Especially with, I guess, them saying, "Oh yeah, the Sith have been gone for over a millennia," and then what did the Jedi have to do other than peacekeepers? And so they become super complacent and start getting to the politics and start losing their way. And I think it's important that they put it like this so they can be able to set it up for the downfall of the Jedi,
Oh, absolutely.
because
I
they get
think
so
even
distracted with it all.
Yeah, I think even Yoda himself, I believe at one point, I forget where it was from, but I believe he said, like, personally, how the Jedi had become blinded by the politics. I don't know if that was after Order 66 and after everything went down, but I know at some point, I believe he said that or said something similar to that. And the way the Jedi are introduced into the Phantom Menace, really is a head scratcher to the audience, because we're like, because we've been told how great the Jedi are during the original trilogy, how great they used to be, and it's like the Emperor must be and it keeps the audience thinking like the Emperor must be extremely powerful to be able to overthrow all of them and take over the galaxy. Which, don't get me wrong, the Emperor is indeed extremely powerful, but I think what was a nice little twist to it was how the prequels and the Phantom Menace foreshadowed and just straight up told you how not only was the Emperor involved with the Jedi's downfall, but the Jedi themselves and their arrogance and their unwillingness to like to move past like certain aspects, and how they become blinded by certain politics and issues in the galaxy rather than standing what the Jedi are meant to be and so forth. In fact, when Qui-Gon returned back to Coruscant to report that he had encountered a Sith on Tatooine, on Darth Maul, um, Mace Windu himself just straight up said, "I do not believe the Sith could return without us knowing." That right there spells out the arrogance you're going to see in the Jedi throughout the prequels, and is a very early indicator of how their arrogance played a massive role in their downfall. And that is very much expanded on the Clone Wars, how so many answers of Order 66 and who the Emperor is. The answers are right there in front of them. They can easily find them, but they're so blinded by their egos and their arrogance that that the Emperor knows that, and he plays that into his game, and just pretty much, he allows their own arrogance to be their own downfall in the way.
Yeah, and it's really kind of interesting because like the Jedi are supposed to be like super connected to the Force, and this kind of shows you that they've lost that connection, especially with Mace Windu saying what he said. Oh yeah, they couldn't return without us knowing. It's like, okay, well, somewhere along the line you got distracted and you're being cut off from the Force in a way that you're not as Jedi as you should be.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Yeah. Even as I've said like many times. Well, this is a personal opinion of mine and personal preference. How I always felt like, just because I always felt like the smartest Jedi at that time was indeed Qui-Gon Jinn. He was the one who did not, who was not blinded by the politics. He participated when he had to, but he did not let that deter his connection and his, guidance by the Force. He still trusted in the Force itself. He was confident that Anakin was the chosen one, and it was confident that he needed to be trained and taken under the Jedi, so that he would not be manipulated by the dark. And I know it's a very common theory, or at least a lot of people like to say that, including me, that had Qui-Gon survived against Maul, had he lived, there's a high chance that Anakin may have not have turned, because the prophecy is that Anakin will bring balance to the Force and he will destroy the Sith, but it never said he had to turn to the dark side first. That was by his own decision. So,
Yeah.
and along with a lot of influence from the Jedi and how they treated him really poorly. And Qui-Gon was aware of how fragile and how crucial it was to treat Anakin well and act and belong, and made him show that or give him a sense of belonging and compassion, and care. Whereas the Jedi really just kind of just brushed that off when they trained him. And so, like I said, Qui-Gon may not have been on the council, and I would say, there may be some Jedi, maybe in terms of wiser than him, but in terms of just pure intelligence and of the Force and just allowing and staying true to the Jedi code, Qui-Gon is really one of the few pure ones to actually stay on that path.
Right. Yeah, because I've always thought like Qui-Gon always understood things that the Jedi didn't. Like, you're supposed to become detached, no love, blah blah blah, all that Jedi code stuff. But Qui-Gon kind of had a different perspective. Like, when he saw Anakin, he's like, okay, I'm gonna be the father figure that this kid needs. And Qui-Gon had that compassion and the love that probably would have kept Anakin on the right path. And I strongly believe that. And that's why Qui-Gon had to die at the end of this film, is in order to have Anakin go down the path that he did. That way we can be able to bring the balance in a different way. I mean, who knows? I don't know if the balance was ever meant to be brought about by the wiping out of the Jedi, or if there's a different way. I've always wondered about that. Like, if Qui-Gon stuck around, how would Anakin fulfill the prophecy?
Ooh, that actually is a good question, because I think like, regardless of which canon you follow, whether it's Disney canon or the EU, the expanded universe, the novels, or also known as legends, currently I like to still say expanded universe, but regardless of which timeline you follow, even after Anakin brings balance to the Force, it always was intended for the Jedi to increase in numbers again by Luke. He was going to rebuild the Order, increase the number of the Jedi again to not really overthrow, but over, like, the light and the Jedi were supposed to, outmatch any dark side users that may still be out there, which technically really may not be considered balance per se. So it's really it is a real like head scratcher, like contemplating the thought of what if Qui-Gon had stayed or stuck around and he survived, and if Anakin never overthrew the Jedi and Order 66 never happened, if the balance would still be considered, a official balance, like what you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's very intriguing because I always Qui-Gon is kind of like that wild card. Especially the way that he talks to Obi-Wan in that scene at the very beginning. Like Obi-Wan is like, "Oh, I feel disturbance of the Force, not here," and then Qui-Gon's like, keep your feelings here in the present. Like, don't worry about anything else." And I think that's kind of like the whole thing that we see with Anakin and Obi-Wan is they're constantly all over the place. And I mean, the Clone Wars kind of throw them into that. They're always having to be on their alert and looking at different things. I think that's one thing Anakin always struggled with.
Oh yeah, always like struggling to stay on one true path, and his emotions and just sense in the Force just constantly jumping all over the place. And I do believe that was kind of like passed on to him from Obi-Wan, because I wouldn't say Obi-Wan was a poor teacher. He just, when he took on Anakin at such a young age, like when Obi-Wan was so young, he really only took Anakin as an apprentice because he promised Qui-Gon. He never really just straight up like said how he changed his mind and started to believe that Anakin was indeed the chosen one.
Or even that he was ready to take on a Padawan yet.
Oh no, for sure. Like he had just become a knight. He was in no position to take on such a massive responsibility like that.
Even though I know he does it in the council when Qui-Gon's like, "I'm going to train this boy without the permission of the council," and Obi-Wan's like, "Oh, I am ready," but I really don't think he was.
I think what Qui-Gon was referring to there was just Obi-Wan to become a knight. I don't think he meant like for him to take on an apprentice. It was just like, because once you become a knight, you don't really have to like follow a master around all the time. You have a little more freedom to do certain things like by your own choice. So, and because Qui-Gon wanted to take on Anakin as his Padawan at that moment, had Obi-Wan done the trials and become a knight, that would free up Anakin to become Qui-Gon's apprentice. And even then, right there, when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were saying like how Kenobi is ready for the trials to become a knight, like even Yoda said like, our own council we will keep on who we will like decide on who is ready. It's like, you're not like, how do you like the whole Jedi Council, like how do they determine who is ready and who isn't? Like you, sometimes it's going to be a hit or miss. Like if they fail the trials one time, just train a little more, then come back and try again. Like, how do you know whether they're going to pass or fail? You may be strong in the Force, but you can't fully predict the future. You can have visions that may have a 50-50 chance of being true or not, but you don't know for certain what's going to happen. And especially with the council, that was another sign of their arrogance. And it's really heartbreaking to see that coming from Yoda himself,
Yeah.
So I would say Qui-Gon was in the right to say he was ready for the trials to become a knight, because he was really the only one with his head on straight and not his thoughts jumping all around and letting his arrogance get the better of him. He trusted in the Force, and the Force, led him to believe that Kenobi was ready, Anakin was the chosen one, and so forth. And because Kenobi did defeat Maul and was promoted to the rank of knight, that did prove that he was indeed ready.
Yeah, I would say so. And that's kind of why, like, speaking like the Force and stuff, it's like, because you can't see that when they're all at Trade Federation ship. They're standing there just in that little dining room, and they pull out that lightsabers, and Qui-Gon's like, "All right, get ready for something. Something's going down." And then not more than a second, all the smoke comes in, and then you start seeing that they come out of the smoke. Then they start fighting the battle droids, and then so Qui-Gon definitely knew something was going on there. And jumping into that scene though, like what do you think of like the droids being like the main villain or not the main villain, but like the main army in the prequels?
I thought it was it was a unique original take compared to what we had already seen with the stormtroopers. Like I said, it played very well into just adding on to the universe of Star Wars without going crazy with like the thing with Lucas and the prequels was he knew how to create new ideas while staying true to the lore that he had already established. He knew how to like he was more open-minded, but also knew like he had to abide by certain rules. So even if there was an idea that wasn't really loved in general, like for example maybe the midichlorians or something like that, it didn't break the rules of Star Wars itself. It just expanded upon them. And so, of course, some of those branches will not be adored by all people, but I think as time went on, the droids definitely were and still are a major um, lots of fans still adore them. So to introduce this new army of the droids, even at the time then, it was I think I still think it was a pretty good and creative idea, and really like I said, it added a lot more, context and detail into the story, and showing like what the army was for the bad guys before the stormtroopers. And if anything, it helped it with the droids. That also played into the impact Order 66 had. Like they say, okay, the droids are the bad guys. Like they're the army for the bad. But then the clones are our good guys. Like so, there you go, audience. There's your black and white, but then you see that major twist. The clones turn on the Jedi, and then they become the bad guys, which I think was a really nice little touch, and adds a lot more, nice depth to the droids.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually thought the droids were cool because you kind of like it expands more on the whole Star Wars universe, and especially like because you see R2D2, you see all these different droids in the original trilogies, and then you jump into this, and now you got these battle droids and the super battle droids, you got destroyer droids, and then you got all these different types of droids, and it's really cool to kind of see that they're not just R2 units or torture droids or protocol droids. Like they actually use droids for battle as well, and I thought that was actually really cool.
Indeed.
Um, Especially for like taking over planets, because especially once we get taken down to Naboo, it's crazy to see how much of the army is already down there.
Oh yeah, and also it was really cool. Like just just seeing these new, like you said, seeing these new form of droid, and just adding a lot more expansion to the whole universe with new characters, and just like you said, of expanding upon the creativity and just toy like box of endless possibilities in the terms of droids, because robots can be very expanded upon in many different ways and interpreted, new
Mm-hmm.
designs, so forth. So to add the droids the way that they were was a really clever idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And oh yeah, which reminds me, jumping on this planet. What did you think of our favorite comical relief character that we get introduced, Mr. Jar Jar Binks?
uh,
And I'm not gonna say like I just recently watched this film, and I remember when I first saw the movie, I really didn't have a problem with Jar Jar. And then as it went on, I was like, oh man, Jar Jar's just super annoying. Why is this character here? And then now I rewatched it, I'm like, Jar Jar's not that bad.
honestly, I honestly, if I'm being honest, I genuinely agree. Like, I admit he doesn't, like, as of episode one, he doesn't really add much in terms of the story. We know he's there just for children's amusement, because George has always said how Star Wars is meant for children. So we know he was added in there as something for the kids to enjoy. As for
Yeah,
the older
and Jar
audience,
Jar was actually George's favorite character.
oh yeah, and he did say episode one is his favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in terms of like just behind the scenes, just overall the whole aspect of film, Jar Jar brought a lot to the table, like for just the industry in general. Because I believe, like I'm pretty sure I'm correct about this. How Jar Jar was the first fully like CGI'd character on screen, like motion captured and all that, which paved the way for different characters like um, the
Gollum.
Gollum from Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, Caesar from the Planet of the Apes, just or even
Mm-hmm.
Thanos from the Avengers. Any motion capture, fully CGI characters you see these days, that all started with
That's
Jar
true.
Jar.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Jar Jar was the very first CGI character that we were able to see, or motion cap character that we got to see on screen. And that's one thing that the Phantom Menace and a lot of prequels get a lot of hate for is a lot of the CGI. And if you take into account just the era that Star Wars came out in, or that the prequels came out, and this was like revolutionary. And so a lot of the stuff that was done in the prequels were a lot of I want to say, experiment stuff that happened to take off very well. Because I
Oh
know a lot of
yeah.
people really enjoy the practical effects and stuff like this, but the prequels added a lot to the industry, and this was like some revolutionary stuff that we're able to see affecting a lot of films today.
Yeah, one thing George was very creative and very talented with was for each trilogy he made or any movie, he found a way to expand upon the technology of the film industry and push the boundaries further and further, just keep moving that goalpost, trying to improve more as time went on. So even if something of his at the time may have been controversial, it paved the way for a bunch of newer films that are loved and adored in so many ways. And we all got to remember it started when George did it. So for each trilogy for Star Wars, for the two he was involved in, he pushed the boundaries each time. So if he had done his sequel trilogy, it really makes you wonder what would have done that time. Like, especially since he was going deep into the Force lore and all that stuff. It's like, imagine what he could have and what he could have and would have and should have done had he held on to the rights and done the trilogy. Just picture what he could have done. The possibilities are endless.
Oh yeah, like just seeing what he did with like all the individual planets, like even adding depth into Naboo. Like you have Naboo, it's like okay, it's another planet, blah blah blah. Then you get introduced to Jar Jar, and then it's like oh yeah, let's go to this lake. There's a city underneath it, and then you get into a whole new world. It's like okay, there's a cohabitation here on this planet, and just kind of found very interesting to just see all the different layers that he put into just his storytelling. And I can only imagine what he would do with the sequel trilogy. I'm really sad that we're not going to be able to see it.
He should at least have like the right or honor or just the freebie to at least release his outlines at the very least, because I'm very curious to see what he had planned. We've heard him talk a little here and there of what he was going to do, but I want to be able to read those full outlines, like, and maybe even have him or someone close to him adapt them into books. That would be nice. That would be very beautiful.
Kind of what they did with the comic series on the original Star Wars concepts. They did a whole series on like Starkiller and um, Han Solo like being was it similar to Zeta. I know I talked about this in, the last time I spoke, but it's just kind of interesting. Uh, but that's another thing. It's just like all the costume designs. Like here we get Queen Amidala popping in, and it's just very extravagant, very ornate, and just her royal guards just standing around her was pretty cool. That's one thing that I really liked about the prequels is I really liked the costume designs.
Oh yes, yeah, those were very like nice additions to the overall, lore. And also, just as a side note to Jar Jar, because I know I don't think I fully answered the question. In terms of his presence being there, he never really bothered me like ever. Even as a kid, when I watched him, I was like he didn't really make me laugh per se, like George wanted the kids to laugh at. But he didn't bother me either. Even as I got older and I saw all the hate, even I would just rewatch it again. I was like, he's not really bothering me. He's not crucial, but he's not annoying either. He's just kind of there.
There,
And it's
yeah,
like your average when you're walking by along the street and you just bump into someone, you just have a quick wave, say sorry, and move on. That type of thing. Like just
yeah,
like a normal person walking by. Like okay, he's just there, whatever. He's not bothering me.
yeah, true. Especially when he's on Tatooine, like him and Sebulba. I always thought that interaction was comical.
Oh yeah, that was actually kind of a nice, the nice little one. Um, Speaking of Tatooine, how did you feel about the introduction to Anakin? Seeing him walk into the shop for the first time, him introducing himself to Padme, realizing who this kid is going to become. How does he go from this little
Cute little
innocent
kid
child
to
to the second most evil person in the galaxy? Like, what was your thoughts on when he was first introduced?
when he was first introduced, I was kind of exactly that. It's like, okay, you see this innocent kid. Okay, so we get to see his origins. So he's a slave, and immediately he falls in love with Padme. Going, "Are you an angel?" And I just remember that being super cheesy. I'm like, all right, this kid's gonna be annoying. And but yeah, I really like how they kind of showed you how innocent Anakin was, and how helpful he was. Like one of the biggest quotes that he even says is like when he was talking to Qui-Gon, he says, "My mom says one of the biggest problems in the galaxy is that nobody helps each other,"
Yeah.
and that just kind of sets the tone for Anakin's personality throughout the whole time because that is Anakin. Yeah, so it's just kind of really interesting how they're just setting up his character and who Anakin is. And so it's like, okay, so we see this kid is super helpful. He's willing to trade a ship that he built himself in order to help these complete strangers get a part for their ship that just showed up randomly. Loan
Yeah.
less than a day, and he's already offering his services. And so I remember seeing that. I'm like, okay, so I really want to see the story and what happens to this kid to make him go down such a dark path.
For sure. And as a little, just a little side joke here. That "Are you an angel?" like line, as cringy as it is, it makes sense because he's just a kid. He doesn't know any better. He's not exactly, like he's not ladies' man Johnny Depp over here. Flirting, like James Bond or something like that. But
Yeah,
hey,
he's like what, 9 at this point?
yeah,
12?
it worked down the road, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta look at this kid. So he's a slave. All he knows is repairing parts in this little shop in order to get his proper dinner or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so he's around a lot of pilots because he deals with a lot of those type of parts. And so that's one of the things he says, like, oh, yeah, I heard the pilots talk about these angels. So they talk about how beautiful and pretty they are. So here there's this beautiful person that walks into my shop. It's like, okay, that must be what the pilots are talking about. Because I'm sure he never saw a picture. That he's not going to stop the pilots to say, oh, yeah, show me a picture of these crazy angel creatures you're talking about. Oh, yeah, off at Diego? Okay. Oh, perfect. All right, cool. I want to go there one day.
Yeah.
To him, he never thought that was possible.
But yeah, just when he did mention that how the pilots talk about angels, was that like how he mentioned how pilots talk about angels? Was that ever explored upon, like that we know of in a novel? Like, is it like, were they like maybe referring to like sentient beings of the Force as the angels or something like that? Because that definitely sounds like a line that George would try to imply a more religious aspect to it. Because we know he
No,
did explore a lot of mythology and religious, themes for his stories.
no, I know that in the Clone Wars they go to the moons of Diego, and we find out that the separatists has like this thing that causes pilots to stay on a planet. And so, as far as like Anakin overhearing pilots talking, I don't think they really did anything with Anakin as a kid in the books. Mostly
Okay.
like a lot of the later stories. And but I do know that they explore Diego, and you get to see the angels that were being discussed in the Clone Wars.
Okay. I had to rewatch it then.
Oh yeah, I think it's like second or third season.
I
Yeah,
will
it's pretty
say,
cool.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, were you going to say something first?
Oh no, I was just gonna just say it was that episode with the one kid that reprograms the battle droids to serve him. I don't know if you remember that episode.
I think I'll have to find the box set somewhere. I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
more. I have a stronger memory of the later seasons, like 3 through 6 is when
Okay, so
those are
it's
my
gotta be
stronger
in.
ones. So I'll have to like rewatch, like I said, find the box set at like a used
Mm-hmm.
movie store or something like that. But
Disney Plus,
another thing I
bro.
was gonna what?
Disney Plus. If you got it.
Eh, you know how I feel about Disney.
Oh yeah. That's right. We did discuss that. Yeah.
uh, for the I was going to mention how one novel that really expands upon the Phantom Menace itself, the Darth Plagueis novel, that really adds a lot of depth into it, and I really admire it.
That is one I've never touched, and I hear so much about it, and I've been meaning to touch it, but I've never done it. The only prequel book that I've read was I forget what the name of it, but it's the one where Darth Maul is discovered by a master and a Padawan, and they're going through Coruscant trying to escape Darth Maul
Maybe
in
it was
order to inform the
Shadow
Jedi.
Hunter.
I
I'm
think
not
it's Shadow.
sure.
I think it was Shadowhunter. That sounds familiar.
I'm pretty sure that one does have Maul in it. I have the book back at my house. I'll have to check on that at
Yeah,
some point.
yeah. The whole book is about Darth Maul chasing these two Jedi, and for anybody that's going to read them, hopefully you'll forget. But I just thought it was the funniest thing because the Jedi finally make it back to Coruscant, they go up an elevator, the door opens, and guess who's standing there? Palpatine. It's like, Palpatine, guess what? And then lightsaber turns on, they're dead.
Oof.
Yeah. One of my favorite books. I loved it, and that was probably, I was like, how are they gonna like make this work with the canon for the Jedi not knowing? Oh, well, there you go. But yeah, I mean, jumping back to Anakin, it's like crazy. Like he's walking with him. It's like, oh, there's a sandstorm. Just come back to my place, and you guys can wait out the night.
Oh yeah. And I was gonna mention how like I haven't read the Plagueis novel myself. It's with me right now. I have my own physical copy of it. I just
I have it somewhere.
I haven't read it yet, but I know I've like watched YouTube summaries and videos before I got the book, because I'm currently reading Choices of One with Mara Jade, which is really good so far. I'm loving her character more and more. So after
I
I
love
finish
Mary
that one,
Jade.
I intend to do the Plagueis novel. But I know how the story goes, and I was going to mention how in the Plagueis novel, it adds a lot more to the story and creation of Anakin himself. You know, because it spoilers for everyone listening for the Darth Plagueis novel. Spoilers, you've been warned. 3, 2, 1. So in the Plagueis novel, how it dives into uh, the plot of how Plagueis was trying to, manipulate the midichlorians to create life, as how Palpatine told Anakin, and how his actions resulted in the creation of Anakin himself. Plagueis didn't create Anakin like himself or even by accident. What Plagueis was doing was trying to, cheat the Force in a lot of ways, like manipulate it in ways that it shouldn't. And the Force itself, with its own, mentality, or from what we understand, it kind of has its own mind of its own, pretty much like God or something like that. It did not like what Plagueis was doing and saw he was trying to tip the balance into the dark side's favor. So the Force reacted by impregnating Shmi with Anakin himself. So he would be born and eventually bring the balance back to the Force, because Plagueis was trying to, mess with things he shouldn't. And once Plagueis got word that a child had been created through the Force, he immediately realized, or at least speculated, that it was his own fault, and that how this kid was supposed to be the chosen one to bring the balance to the Force and destroy the Sith. So that's when Palpatine got really like scared and terrified of what could happen. So, in fact, you remember the scene where Anakin and Qui-Gon are on the platform on Coruscant, and Anakin asks Qui-Gon about the midichlorians?
Yeah.
So when he's talking there, somewhere in one of like the buildings in either the background or off screen, Plagueis is there. I'm pretty sure this is how it went. Plagueis is on like a balcony or something on one of the buildings to where he can see Anakin from a distance. He's like, I don't know, maybe a few hundred feet away or something like that. So he sees Qui-Gon and Anakin talking. So what he does, he reaches out with the Force to try to sense Anakin, and he gets like flooded in his mind with countless visions of things that will happen in the future, like space battles from the original trilogy, lightsabers clashing between Luke and Vader. But one image he did see was, and I quote, a black helmeted cyborg rising from a table, which was when Vader was completed in Episode 3 on Mustafar, when he got his suit. So he knew that he didn't know like what these visions meant. He didn't know how they were going to play out, but he knew that this kid was involved somehow, and that it was crucial that he be turned to the dark side for them to unfold. So when Maul went to Naboo to kill Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, he was not only there to kill the Jedi. I believe it's said in the book how Plagueis and Palpatine ordered Maul to kill the Jedi and to retrieve Anakin himself and bring him back to the Sith. So even though it's never specifically stated in the movies, Maul was there to kill Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and to also take Anakin back to the Sith. So had he succeeded and killed both Qui-Gon and Kenobi, he would have taken Anakin back to Plagueis and Palpatine. Even in
So
season 7. Oh, just go ahead.
I was gonna say, so at this point, Plagueis is still alive during the Phantom Menace. See, I don't know
Yes,
too much about Plagueis and the timeline of when Palpatine killed him.
yes, actually, I believe the death
At
of
least in the legend stuff, right?
yes, well, at least
Yeah.
my preference of canon, but yes,
Uh,
legends. But
yeah.
but I believe, yeah, I believe in the novels. Yeah, the death of Plagueis and the quote unquote death of Maul, as we know, it was just the defeat of Maul. They happened basically simultaneously and on this, I believe, on the same day or within the same time frame. So I believe so. So Maul's death or defeat by on the at the hands of Kenobi happened, like, I believe, during the day at that time. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe it was later that night or sometime afterwards or very, very basically sometime very soon after, or yeah, after. Plagueis, was becoming delusional. He was very worried about the future of the Sith. And I believe this was after Palpatine had become the Chancellor. He had won the election. So he personally reassured Plagueis, like, don't worry, the boy will be in our hands. He will turn, the Sith will rule the galaxy. That cliche villain monologue, blah, blah, blah. So that he gets Plagueis extremely, like, drunk and passed out. And that's when Insidious takes that opportunity to kill him. Because remember, he said to Anakin, his apprentice killed him in his sleep, which he did. He electrocuted him till he was dead. He basically fried him to a barbecue crisp. But yeah, his Maul's defeat happened very much simultaneously with the death of Plagueis, and it was because of that. I believe in the novels, it stated how because so much in the dark side had shifted, because Maul had lost, Plagueis was dead, how Palpatine felt such a massive change in the dark side, and how so much dark side energy started flooding his way, and he felt so much more power because the dark side really didn't have to, like, spread out the power anymore between those three. It was just Palpatine himself until he eventually recruited Dooku. But that was when Palpatine really became extremely powerful and started to become his own. And um how even in season 7 of the Clone Wars, now I don't have Disney Plus, but I have seen clips of the season, so I know how everything plays out. So you don't have to worry about spoilers about that. But I remember when Ahsoka and Maul were talking on Mandalore before their duel, how right before she considered actually joining Maul. Now, of course, we know that a lot of these episodes and a lot of these dialogues and concepts were completed before Disney had purchased Lucasfilm. Just the animation had to be, polished up and so forth. Of course, some things were changed, but but I'd say, like, we know the sister arc was added in by Disney. That was never Lucas's plan. But we know the Bad Batch and Mandalore pretty much basically stayed the same for the most part, except for the Mandalore ending, because Ahsoka was meant to die in Order 66. She was meant to die, like, on that cruiser or something like that. But back to
Right.
back to Maul and
How you
Ahsoka when
find
they were
it.
talking. Right before she's about to join him, she had one more question for him, saying, like, "What? Why did you want Anakin to be here?" Because he said how he wanted this whole Mandalore attack to be able to lure in Kenobi and Anakin, and he said how he wanted to lure in Anakin because he's known for a while now that Anakin has been a pawn to become his master's apprentice, and he said he's known this for a while now. So, considering how that quote is most likely was already established before the Disney purchase, it really again adds a lot more to the Plagueis novel, because again he's known this whole time that Anakin was going to be Palpatine's apprentice, because that was his original mission in Episode 1 on Naboo, to retrieve Anakin. So that line pretty
Interesting.
much would make the Plagueis novel canon, basically.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, because I know when Anakin goes to the council, they're like, "Oh, much is clouded around you."
Oh yeah,
And I'm wondering if like a lot of that background stuff, like I know legend stuff, but even like we already know Palpatine is making moves at this point, and I wonder if a lot of that affected Anakin without him even realizing it.
oh yeah, and
You
I
think that the
also
Jedi would figure that out at that point too? It's like, okay, something's going on here.
yeah, and I also think a lot of it was also because of for the reason for his clouded mind was because of he was brought into the Jedi at a much older age than what most children are. Like they're just like toddlers or something like that. He was already like almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
So he had already grown attachments to his mother and his loved ones. So that was going to be more harder for him to let go. And also even in the same scene when Qui-Gon was trying to take on Anakin as his apprentice and have Kenobi take the trials, Mace Windu just straight up told to Qui-Gon while Anakin was in the room, when Qui-Gon asked, "Will you train Anakin?" He said, "No, he will not be trained," which really not only shocked Qui-Gon, but you can see like there's a moment, like a camera shot, where that focuses on Anakin. You start to see like his face and like
he's angry.
Yeah, he's frustrated. Like he's already frustrated and like bitter towards Mace Windu. So the seeds of his anger toward the Jedi were there from the very beginning, but not because of Sidious, but because again of the Jedi's own arrogance and how their own hand they played themselves basically. They allowed part of the reason of the downfall was because of themselves and how the Jedi Council saw themselves as these higher ups that they pretty much saw themselves above everyone else, which is like not something any Jedi should ever do. You're meant to like level yourself you're meant to put yourself on other people's levels, like compassion, understanding, love, care. Whereas they even admitted he's strong in the Force, like they could sense his strength or his potential, and yet they say, no, we're not going to train you. You're too old. And it's like, and you said, and even Yoda said, this clouded this boy's future is, and any logical person like Qui-Gon would be like, well, if his vision is clouded or his future is clouded, there's a chance he could turn to the darkness. We have to make sure that doesn't happen. We don't want someone this powerful on the dark side. We don't want him as our enemy. Do you realize the type of destruction he would do if we just turn him away right now, and the bitterness he will create in his heart for us, and how dangerous that could be? Like, just because his future is clouded, that does not set in stone the things he would eventually do. As Qui-Gon saw, like there's a way that we can change that. We have to show him love, compassion, and care.
Things he never had.
Yeah, how to control this power he's not aware of or doesn't understand much. We can't let that power also go to his head. We have to keep him on ground level, per se.
Like I always found that interesting. Like they're saying, "Oh yeah, we're not gonna train him. Just turn the kid away. He's too old." Blah blah. Blah. I'm like, how many people did they turn around? I'm like, seriously, like, and if they turn Anakin away, it's exactly that. It's like, okay,
exactly.
He's gonna figure out how to use the Force either way. Either he's gonna be clumsy with it and do things by accident and cause some havoc, or slowly learn it, or Palpatine probably would have swooped in. Or it's like, okay, they turned you away. All right.
Yeah, like I said, that was the original mission for Maul. He was going to bring Anakin back to Plagueis and Sidious, So it's like he's standing in the council right there. You have him in your possession. You admitted he's strong in the Force. There's potential he could turn to the darkness. It's your responsibility to not let such power become evil or fall to the dark side. It's your job to make sure he stays on the path of the light. Don't turn him away just because you're not sure what's going to happen to him. That was another thing about the council. If something didn't go their way or they couldn't predict something, they would just brush it off, thinking it wasn't important. They wouldn't investigate it. They would say, because we're so powerful and we sit on these nice, massaging, relaxing chairs, that if we can't figure something out, or if we can't send something, or if it's something we do not predict, then it's not important, which is pretty much goes against everything the Jedi should ever stand for, which again they played themselves with that mindset, which is now I'm kind of glad that Qui-Gon didn't take a seat on the council, because he knew that they were stupid. They were idiots. They may be good in dueling and strong in the Force, but in terms of just pure intelligence and common sense, which is what a Jedi really should value, they're idiots, really.
Yeah, and I don't. So that scene where Mace Windu is talking to Anakin, he's like, "Okay, tell me what you see." And Qui-Gon's sitting there with all the different pictures, and Anakin's guessing.
In the Phantom Menace?
In the Phantom Menace, yeah. I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but I kind of noticed it too this last time that I watched it. Mace Windu is known for one of his Force abilities called Shadow Point. And I feel like he was kind of using that on Anakin at that point. He was trying to find a weakness in Anakin. And then he ultimately finds out. He's like, okay, your thoughts dwell on your mother, and blah blah blah. And it goes on to that whole thing. And then we get that famous quote from Yoda
Oh yeah,
about, what was it?
fear
Fear
is the
leads to
path to the
anger,
dark
anger leads to
side.
hate,
Fear leads to
hate
anger,
leads
anger leads to hate, hate leads to
to
suffering.
suffering, and then it goes to the dark side. Yeah, I always found that fascinating because like, goes with the whole thing. It's like, okay, so Qui-Gon's trying to find a weakness in this kid, so he figured that he would use that ability a little bit more effectively. Okay, we found his weakness. His mother's the weakness. Okay, let's send some Jedi over. Let's make sure his mom is okay. Okay, all right,
Oh
your mom's
yeah.
doing fine. So let's continue training. I wonder how different that would be if like a Jedi were able to see their loved ones, because they get taken from their parents at a young age,
Oh yeah, they're pretty much like they're not allowed to really much have any connection whatsoever. In fact,
which is odd.
which yeah, like that's the thing. Like I can understand I understand why the Jedi like walk so carefully on emotions because a lot of emotions play into the dark side, but that doesn't mean you should really just brush them off entirely. You should acknowledge your emotions and learn how to like maintain them. You shouldn't just to try to shut yourself off. You shouldn't be like Batman with the same face and trying to deny your emotions all the time as a Jedi. You should like acknowledge and understand how these emotions work and admit that as a human or just any living organism you're going to feel emotions like that, and it's just important to have the right training to acknowledge those emotions and keep them under control. Like you shouldn't ignore them completely, and I think that was something that Luke was very aware of in the Legends continuity. After when he rebuilt the
Yeah,
Order, he was very aware of making sure to not brush off those type of emotions and in fact embrace them. Sometimes he embraced his love for his father and Return of the Jedi, and that saved him.
and he kind of realizes that like we don't see it too much in the sequels, but we do get to see that Luke tried to go along the Jedi way, and then ultimately it didn't work. And he even talks about it. It's like, oh, the Jedi were arrogant, so we need to get rid of the whole Jedi Order, whatever, because
Yeah.
whatever they're teaching isn't the right way. And I think that would have been like a great opening for the Legends Luke to come in, which we kind of get a little bit of later. Um, Especially with like Anakin is strong in the Force, like why would you want to turn him away? Especially if you keep him around, like he falls to the dark side in the middle of a bunch of Jedi. He's surrounded. Whatever. We see in the Clone Wars it doesn't work well for Bar Sophie.
For Barris Offrey.
Offer, yeah. My
Yeah.
bad.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Um so you figured, okay, so we got this Jedi that's this Force is clouded around him, unsure about him. Let's bring him in, let's give him a trial, test him out. All right. This one needs a little bit more attention, so let's give him a little bit more attention, you know?
Yeah, and like
Uh
you said, how Shadow Point was one of Windu's like abilities to spot a weakness in anybody. It's honestly kind of pathetic on his part if it's confirmed that he used Shadow Point on Anakin. It's really pathetic that he would use that on a child just to test him for weaknesses. Like he's a kid. He's obviously going to be like rough around the edges. He's new to this stuff. He's not going to be a Jedi master like up front. He's going to have to need training. He's going to have weaknesses. So the fact that he
and
had to use
and he
that on a
doubts that he's the
kid,
chosen one.
what?
And he doubts that he's the chosen one. So I figure that's the main reason why if he did use it, that would be the reason.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because like I said, I don't remember. I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast. How I don't remember if it's confirmed or not, but I think it is commonly believed how Mace was jealous of Anakin because Mace himself wanted to believe he was the chosen one over
Right, yeah.
Anakin, which really is again pathetic on his part. He feels the need to take out his jealousy on a child and refuse to train him just to protect his own ego. That's really pathetic for a Jedi Council member.
Oh, absolutely. But like we run into, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I like about the Phantom Menace is we get a lot of time with the council. We get multiple scenes with the council. We get to see them discuss things, and we kind of get to see why they fell to begin with, why the Jedi Order was weak, and a lot of this in their discussions is I want to say a big part of that. Because I mean, you got this kid who Qui-Gon stumbles upon on Tatooine and can pod race. Only no human can do it. And you got this 9-year-old kid that can do it.
And not to mention, his midichlorian count was extremely high when Qui-Gon
That
tested
too,
it.
yeah.
It was higher
Yeah.
than Yoda's.
Well, speaking of the pod racing, what did you think of that whole aspect? It kind of takes away from like the whole film itself. It's like, okay, so we're focusing on politics. We got this kid. Oh, okay, we have this whole race thing now, and it's kind of a fun part of the series. So one thing that I wish I could have seen a lot more in some of the other films, that I think that would have been really cool. I know they touch upon it in the Knights of the Old Republic, but I would have loved to see them touch it on it in the movies again.
Oh yeah, they did have a very similar scene, or at least moment in the games where of the Knights of the first KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, we'll call it KOTOR,
Yeah,
of where you have to win a particular race to free Bastila, which was
Bastila, yeah.
a really fun part in my opinion when I first played it. It was really fun. It helped. It really had you go into the deeper levels of the planet. It wasn't Coruscant that we were on. I forget what the planet was called, but I know that
It
it
was
got blown.
Terrace. Terrace.
Terrace.
It starts with a T. Yeah,
I think it's Terrace or Tariff. I can't remember. I think it was
Terrace. It was
Terrace.
Terrace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it really helped us like go into the deeper levels of Terrace, the underworld, their underworld, the underground, seeing all these Rakuls, these people who live beneath the surface who don't see the sun. That was a very cool way to explore it while also adding in, the vehicles and the racing and
Mhm.
all that stuff, which was touched upon and which first started with the Phantom Menace, with the pod racing. We got to see a lot more of the gambling and like the gangsters, and they gamble for these races.
Oh yeah,
Mobs.
the fun cameos. Jabba the Hutt. I thought
Oh
that was cool being
yeah.
able to see him again. Also, that's the first time that we get to see Arta Singh in the audience.
See who in the audience?
Arta Singh.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's where she originally started. I remember she was supposed to be a Jedi, and much like Sans Ventress, she was a Jedi that left the Order and took upon bounty hunting. I think one of the older figures of her, she had a lightsaber, and then
Ooh.
as they fleshed her character out more, she just became just a regular bounty hunter, nothing to do with Jedi. And then I think Assange just kind of took over that mantle.
Well, to be honest, considering how arrogant we saw the Jedi leaving the Order, doesn't seem like too much of a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, which is interesting because what is it? There's the Lost 10. I think I know Count Dooku was the number 10 that left the Order, but there's like the
Oh,
Lost 10 is what they call them.
the Lost 20.
Oh, it's the Lost 20. Oh yeah, the Lost 20.
The Jedi who by their own choice left the Order, which I believe
Correct. Yeah,
Dooku was one of them.
I think he was the last one before the Clone Wars. Unless
The
you want
the
to count Sapo Diaz.
Him and Sifo Dyas were the last two.
Yeah, as far according to Legends, yeah. But I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
think canon is Count Dooku was the number 20.
Oh,
Oh,
okay, yeah. I think there
and then
even
it was
is
Ahsoka.
I think there even is a deleted scene in Attack of the Clones where Kenobi's talking to the librarian about the Lost 20. They straight up say the Lost 20 and mention I think they mentioned Dooku. Like I think Kenobi is looking at like a statue of Dooku, and the librarian walks up to him and
Yeah,
they talk about the Lost 20 real briefly.
yeah, they do. I do remember seeing the what you call it the statues. I remember thinking that was cool. I was like, man, why did they keep this in the movie?
Oh, there was a lot of things I wish they kept in the movie. I wanted to see. I just saw it with. I know they deleted a lot with Christopher with Dooku, which like, hey, I'm down to see more Christopher Lee as Dooku. He was awesome.
Oh yeah, and I know in the Phantom Menace, Jake Lloyd mentioned that there was a 6-hour cut that they showed everybody before the final release.
A 6-hour cut.
A 6-hour cut, and everybody was like, man, this is such a good film. And they knocked it down to a little over 2 hours.
Okay, now we got to get the campaign for release Lucas cut now going.
No, for reals. I think the word that Jake Lloyd used was mind-bogglingly good, and I want to see what would bring that expression out of him.
Oh, for sure. I know for a fact there was a 4-hour cut of Revenge of the Sith. That's confirmed for sure.
Yeah,
So
that they had to
there's
cut a
4
lot
hours.
on that one.
So I would also definitely want to see those extended cuts of the first two. If there's also one for Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. Maybe someday, maybe Disney will release that vault. I mean, it's more money for Disney, so I don't know why they wouldn't want to release it.
They could use the money right now.
Oh, for reals. But I don't know. It's kind of for me. I actually really enjoyed watching the pod racing scene. It's just kind of a fun little like detour from the main story.
Yeah, kind of like
And
because. Go ahead.
all I gotta say is Sebulba is kind of a douche to try and kill a kid. That's all I gotta say.
Oh, he's meant to be an ass.
Yeah, no, it's like, oh, this kid's gonna beat me, so let's just kill him. All right, let me. Like he literally sabotages his pod racer and then tries to take him out on the course. I'm like, man.
If anything, he and Mace have some stuff in common there. Oh, they think he can be better than me? Well, we'll just either kill him or banish him. Or even in the Clone Wars when Mace Windu with the Zillo Beast arc from season 2. That one I do
Oh
remember.
yeah, the Zilla Beast.
Yeah, they first find it in like a big crater or a hole that they caused. So Mace and the clones are down there. They're walking on the beast itself. They call in their ship and they dip out. Even though like 30 seconds ago, Mace is like, "Anakin, you better come down here and give us a hand." So they dip while they leave Anakin down there to deal with the creature. I'm like, really, Mace? You really are gonna be that petty, you asshole?
Yeah, for reals.
Like, are you trying to get this kid killed?
Oh yeah, seriously, and that's one thing that oh man, you can see a little bit more of Qui-Gon, which I thought was cool, and his kind of like his determination. Because he made the deal to free this Anakin and get the parts for the ship and whatever, and I almost felt bad for Watto because he's like, oh man, I feel a little that this is unfair, and Qui-Gon's like, okay, well let's go have the Hutts decide.
Oh yeah, when he was reluctant or refusing to give up the kid to give up Anakin.
Yeah,
Well, to be fair, Qui-Gon did say gambling is unpredictable. So like it's you lose what you bet. You know, you have to be smart with what you're betting. What you're putting up to bet. And even then, I believe this is like his chance cube that he threw for Qui-Gon when Qui-Gon tried to release Anakin and his mom, but
oh yeah,
so he had the chance to keep it saying, if it lands on blue, you get Anakin. If it lands on red, you get his mom. I hear like
and
the chance cube itself was like it had like slivers of it cut off on like certain corners and edges so that it would always land on red for Watto. So he would always bet on red.
yeah,
So that's
uh-huh.
like that's another reason why Qui-Gon made it go on to blue, because I believe like I don't know if he knew or not, but that's the only way it would ever land on blue if somebody manipulated it. Otherwise, it would always land on red. So Watto was already kind of cheating from the start. So he kind of karma comes around.
It's kind of like the whole Han and Lando thing. Lando was cheating against Han, and Han was like, "Oh no, I gotcha."
Oh, isn't that from the Solo movie? What, didn't he lose him in like a card game?
Yeah,
I
so
haven't.
that is at the very end of the film.
I briefly remember that. If I'm being honest, I haven't even fully seen like Solo like in its entirety. I sat down for like the last like hour of it, but I was on my phone like half the time. I was just like at my uncle's house and they were already
Right.
playing it. So I was like, I'm just gonna be on my phone. I'll glance at it a few times here and there, blah blah blah. But I never like saw it in its entirety. But I do remember that part. Even in my preference of canon in The Empire Strikes Back, Han even just straight up told Lando like, "Hey, don't get salty. You lost her to me fair and square," which already implies like there was already some like little cheating type of like rigging the game or whatever bet they
Well,
put on the ship
yeah,
already.
in pre-Disney, they actually mention it in some of the books too, and that's where they kind of got it from.
Really?
Yeah, I forget what book it was, but they do talk about how Han outmaneuvered Lando because Lando was cheating, and Lando took his card in order to best him,
I do
just
remember.
because that was just because that was the personality of Lando.
Uh, I do remember. Just a little fun Lando fact of how I read the Thrawn trilogy of Heir to the Empire, The Dark Force Rising, The Last Command. Great trilogy, by the way.
Uh-huh.
I remember like when within the first 20 pages of the first book, it specifically stated how Lando introduced Luke to hot chocolate, which I was like, I don't know why. That just kind of got a little chuckle out of me. Like, funny seeing a real world drink brought into the Star Wars universe, and of all drinks, it's hot chocolate. I don't know why. That was just kind of funny to me.
Yeah, that is actually really, really funny. Just like that scene, like when they're escaping Naboo, they're like, "Oh, we're sitting ducks here." I'm like, I've never seen a duck in Star Wars. Where, where did they see ducks?
That is true. We've never seen a duck in Star Wars. But then again, they even Dooku or just a lot of characters in the Clone Wars mention God, like God himself. Like Dooku says in the Clone Wars, like when he, Obi-Wan, and Anakin are like connected by chains and they're being held prisoners by the pirates. Like Dooku's like, "You're gonna find a way to get us off this godforsaken planet." And we're all. And I remember the audience in the comment section is like, "Wait, there's a God in this universe? I thought the Force was a God. Like, what's going on here?" Or is God like
Well,
a
I mean,
slang word or something like that in this universe?
I don't know the way that I mean, you're gonna find like religion in any aspect of lore and any type of genre, even in Star Wars, like the forces being the godly force of the galaxy, and so maybe that's another
Yeah.
form that they use with it, or maybe they could even be talking about the wills. Maybe they view the wills as the god form.
You get us off this will forsaken planet.
Yeah, see, like that's kind of how I've always kind of looked at it. I don't really have any canon to back it up, but I mean, it's fantasy.
We got to talk to
It,
George
well,
on that.
yeah, like I mean, honestly, it's like whatever makes sense to you, even if it's not explained in the movies. Like a lot of small things are not going to be expanded upon, something like that too. So whatever makes sense for you, I say just go for it.
Kind of left to the interpretation of the audience per se.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I say movies lack a lot of these days is that whole leaving stuff up for interpretation.
Oh yeah, a lot of movies today they feel the need to explain
Explain
everything
everything.
out to you immediately instead of leaving certain things like letting you decide how it ends or something like that. Kind of like Inception, the ending.
Yeah.
You don't really know if if Leo's character is dreaming or if it's real.
Well, we do
No,
now.
don't tell me.
I just know what to say. Michael Caine in the last like few years came out and said what Christopher Nolan told him about the ending. So I'll leave
Oh,
that up to you. If anybody wants to know, like if you're that curious, go ahead and DM me on the Instagram, and I'll have a discussion with you about it. But
or
out
even
of respect, I won't tell you. Huh?
I think that even also the original Blade Runner, there was always that debate of Harrison Ford being an android or not.
Oh
Ridley
yeah, that's right.
Ridley Scott says yes, Harrison Ford says no, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But it's never. I don't even think in 2049 was it ever. I don't think it was revealed in the one with Ryan Gosling in 2049. I don't
I
remember.
still have yet to watch it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch that one. It's been a while.
I have a buddy that's really big into it. I'll have to text him
Yeah.
and find out his thoughts on it. Um, so we do digress. So it's kind of interesting, just like seeing everything that this whole movie is revolving around Anakin, but also the beginnings of the fall of the Jedi, and jumping on back to like the final battle, which I actually thought was really cool. It's like we get to see Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. That's where they like rekindle their differences. Like, okay, uh, I'm sorry, Master. I shouldn't have gone against you. Blah blah blah. And then they make up. And I think that was probably really good for Obi-Wan because shortly or soon after, Qui-Gon's gonna die, and that's gonna be a little bit more meaningful for Kenobi. And then, not to mention, even Queen Amidala makes amends with the Gungans. And
Oh
I
yeah.
always thought it
Yeah.
was funny though. Yeah, I always thought it was funny the way that Padme is like steps out. She's like, "Oh no, I'm the queen," and he's like, "Whoa, you're deceiving me." Oh no, it's this important that I need to reveal myself entirely. because
Yeah.
we need you. I always thought it was funny because behind the scenes, Natalie Portman's mom had trouble telling apart her and Keira Knightley. Like they did
I
the makeup so well that even Natalie Portman's mom got confused.
I was about to mention I just remembered. I sometimes forget that Keira Knightley is in that role. I think that was like her big I think that was her
One of her
break.
first, right before Pirates.
Yeah, right before. And I speak a little connection here from Pirates. I know that Hondo was partially based on or inspired by Captain Jack Sparrow. So
Yes, I love Hondo.
oh yeah, I was gonna ask for your opinion or your personal feedback if they ever did like Hondo live action, like just hypothetically, if they ever did it, picture this: Johnny Depp as Hondo.
I would not be disappointed.
That would I can he could definitely pull it off. I can definitely see that.
Johnny Depp needs a good role right about now.
Oh, indeed.
And I think, not to get too much into that whole aspect of what's going on, but
Oh, true.
I do think Johnny Depp would pull off an amazing Hondo because it'd be
Oh,
really hard to
definitely.
pull off that character. And he's
Especially
now
when
that you mention it, he's very similar to Jack Sparrow.
I
So
think even the creators of the Clone Wars themselves admitted like he was partially based off of Jack Sparrow, like his personality
I
and so
remember
forth,
reading that
which
somewhere. Yeah.
like it definitely shows, like, and for the good, a good way.
Oh yeah. So what did you think of this final mesh of a battle scene? We got tons of stuff going on in this thing. We got them trying to reclaim the royal palace, and then we have Maul's mission to take out the Jedi here, and then Qui-Gon telling Anakin, "Go sit in the ship, stay there till we're done. We'll come back for you. Just be a good boy and sit still." And then Anakin's like, "Oh well, I know how to fly a pod racer, and I know how to fly a little bit, I guess." So
And he got plot armor.
yeah, and he's got plot armor. So let's go out into space and let's become the hero of the movie. I mean, I don't know. It's unbelievable for a 9-year-old to be able to jump in a ship and accidentally take out a trade federation while disabling the droid army on the surface.
Yeah, I can kind of I can see some criticisms behind that. People will
I
try to
just
make the Gary Sue point or angle of it. It's like, not too much because he does have experience in some aspects of piloting pod racing, and I think one of the more important or big key factors was his prophecy. He's not meant to die here. It is kind of plot armorish, but it is established that him being the chosen one kind of gives him that kind of freebie in a way.
yeah. I remember when I first saw it, I had no issues with it. I mean, I still don't really have any issues with it, but I just find it a little chilly,
Yeah, it
silly.
is a little awkward at first, but after
But
a while, it doesn't really bother me too much.
no, not at all. Um, I think even in my notes I put the force is with the kid. Love how he's learning to fly in the middle of a battle. And I'm like, good thing he has R2. Honestly, if he didn't have R2, I actually think he would have been toast.
Oh,
I'm
for
pretty sure
sure.
R2 pretty much carried him most of that battle.
Oh, definitely. I think the only real things Anakin truly did was shoot the two major blasters into the ship's core and cause it to blow up within the inside.
Yeah.
But without R2, him with R2 taking control most of the time, he probably would have been toast the moment he got
Oh
out of
yeah.
the atmosphere.
Um, yeah. But overall, it was like a whole fun little scene. I really enjoyed it. Thought it was really cool.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Besides, we got a lot of good meme quotes from it.
oh yeah.
Try spinning. That's a good trick.
I think that is probably one of the one I hear quoted the most. I even use it on a daily basis. Not on
Oh,
a
so
daily
do
basis,
I.
but I use it constantly just because it's that. And I think right before you jumped, you're like, this is where the fun begins. I'm like, yep, that's another one I use.
Oh,
Um,
I intend to try. Me being the nerd, making a fool of myself as I am. If I ever come across, a girl that I think is kind of pretty, I want to try, maybe getting to know her. I'm gonna be like, "Are you an angel?" And just see how badly that collapses beneath me, and just have a good laugh about it afterwards.
It's actually funny how much of a nerd I am. Just in my daily life, that it's actually made me connect with more people than if I didn't. People just accept my goofiness. Like even at work, like they make fun of me because we have a radio, and so whenever somebody calls me, I'm like, hey, I need you to do this. I'm like, Roger, Roger, and then people are like, where's that from? I'm like, Star Wars. They're like, yeah, figures. Like literally last night, I went out to dinner. One of my coworkers, she got transferred to another warehouse, and so we had like about an hour and a half wait for our table, and so I have the 311 Star Wars cards. I know they're
Ooh.
selling at Target for a while. They're so nice, and like I'm not being sponsored by them right now, but I think the cards are that good that I'm gonna mention them. And so I did a couple of magic tricks just to entertain people who are waiting, and then we get to the table and I put it on the table. One of my other coworkers, he shows up late, sits down on the table, picks them up, looks at looks at me, he's like, I don't even need to ask who these are. I'm like, yep, guilty. But it's
Yeah,
pretty
that's
fun.
yeah, that's one of the first things that people need to know when I'm meeting somebody new. Like, hey, you need to know half of my sentences are quotes, nerdy quotes. I'm into that stuff. You know, whenever I'm not talking, my mind immediately goes into those fictional stories and
Uh-huh.
universes. I cosplay. That's the first thing you need to know about me in order to get to know me and connect with me. We have to have those. We have to have those connections. Otherwise, it's
Yeah,
going to
like
be a very awkward or dull conversation. You don't have to understand every little quote, but you at least have to,
yeah,
at least
accept it.
carry a good conversation with those topics with me. Otherwise, it's going to be very quiet, very awkward. We're just going to sit there, hardly say a word, and be like, "Okay, nice talking to you. Bye."
Yeah, no, actually May is probably one of the times my coworkers get super excited because every weekend we do something called the Children's Miracle Network, and so we raise money for the LA hospital, Children's Hospital. And so I have a Kylo Ren costume and I have a Shadow Trooper costume, and so everybody gets so excited. Like, Mark, you gonna dress up again? You gonna dress up again? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, cool. I'm like, actually got this new voice changer for the Kylo Ren helmet that I have. It's like a
Ooh.
legit Kylo Ren helmet. But I was at Disneyland and I was hearing them talk. I'm like, man, I really need a voice changer. I really want to sound like Kylo Ren when I'm up there. And so I found this one on Etsy, and it's pretty dang close. And I'm really
Was it
excited.
before or after his mask was destroyed?
Uh, I'm doing the Rise of the Skywalker version.
Okay, so the reconstructed, like, the
Yeah,
red and like, okay, yeah,
yeah.
I'll
There's a
admit
guy
that.
down
I'll
here in
admit.
California that makes helmets, and he actually has the LEDs for the red lights that going around the helmet. It looks pretty legit.
Ooh, okay. I admit that is one of the few cool things from Disney Star Wars. I'll give him that.
Yeah, like I'm not a huge fan of the sequels, but Kylo Ren is probably my favorite character. So I
the
really
one
like
with
him.
the one with the most, yeah, at the same time, sadly wasted potential is what I like to
Yes,
say.
exactly. The most complex, interesting character with wasted potential. Agreed. Uh,
Even then we know he's a horribly translated version of Jason Solo. They pretty much have the same traits, if I'm being honest.
mhm.
Both
Yeah,
admired their grandfather. They turned to the dark side, following this in the footsteps of their grandfather. They both want to be powerful like their grandfather. Difference is Jason actually did reach that power. Like Luke even said in the books himself, how Jason to become more powerful than Vader once he became dark.
yeah,
And how much of a threat he was.
yeah,
Even some of the drawings with Jason and Adam Driver, they look very identical. They almost have the same hairstyle, facial structures. It's like
yeah.
coincidence? I think
I
not.
think not. Yeah, it's very interesting.
They both killed a family member.
Very true. Very true. And both had their uncle try to kill him.
Well, at least Legends Luke's was more justified because he did kill his wife.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I think it
spoilers,
was what
spoilers. It wasn't. It
Jaina was the
wasn't.
one that ends up killing Jason, anyways, right? From what I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. It was
Yeah.
Jaina. At least it
Oh
wasn't
man, I
because of
really
a
wish.
bad dream, so it's a little more justified.
See, I think that would have made more sense in the sequel trilogy, and I'll get more into this when I get into the sequels. But I think it would have made more sense for Kylo and Rey to be more of the twins, like Jaina and Jason. It would fit
Like
the Rise of Skywalker role more. But
a
I
combination of
digress.
both, you know.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that when we get to the sequel trilogy. But jumping back down to this final battle, I really liked what they did with the Gungans. It was very comical, very cheesy, and it was very lighthearted. Jar Jar being himself and accidentally wins.
Yeah. It actually was. It was honestly kind of cool. It was pretty cool seeing the Gungans go into battle. You know, per se, we had
The
already
different
been.
technology that they use. I thought that was interesting. It's not like
Yeah,
lasers and bombs. It was like these little
it's like
electrical
electric gel
gel.
balls type
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, those were kind of cool to see.
like EMP bombs, basically.
They even worked on General Grievous in the Clone Wars. That's saying something.
That's right. It did. I forgot about that. Yeah. Uh,
Which that fight can be seen either way. It can either be shown that the Gungans are very strong and intelligent, or it could also add more to the fact how Grievous is very much butchered in that show. Again, I love the Clone Wars show, but that is probably my biggest eek of the show is how much they toned down Grievous, you know?
from the Samurai Jack version. He was a
Yeah, and I
beast
understand
in
why
that.
they had to downgrade him to some aspects, but they didn't have to go that
Technology.
low.
I think it's just like technology and maneuvers. They couldn't really utilize his character the way that they did in the animated stuff just because technology limits.
Like they
Um,
didn't like he didn't need to be jumping all over the place, snapping people's necks like he did in the 2D show.
oh yeah,
But with his reputation being a Jedi killer and being a dangerous threat, with the technology they had, they could have still done more. He only even killed one Jedi who had just become a knight, and he still kind of cheated with that one. That was like a freebie for him, like
yeah. I think
because
Savage killed more Jedi in Clone Wars than Grievous did.
he did fight a lot of characters that are meant to survive the Clone Wars, which
Yeah, I was
fine,
gonna
I
say
get
most of
it.
his battles was with Kenobi and Ahsoka.
Yeah, which is like fine, I get it. Fine, they're meant to live a little longer, but establish some more Jedi within the Clone Wars itself. Have us grow to like them, admire them. Then have Grievous just
And then kill him.
downright butcher them. Like there you go. Doesn't break continuity, but yeah, and still adds to his reputation as a Jedi killer.
I mean, they left a lot of the darker stuff for Maul and Savage. Because like when Maul first gets back, who do we see? Buddy Gully getting killed right in front of Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And she was a character that didn't get developed as much as I would love to. I know I played was a Jedi Starfighter, and she was the main character in that. And that's where I know her most. And I thought she was really cool.
Yeah.
But again, we digress.
Back to the duel.
Yeah, back to the Phantom Menace. I also found it interesting. So when Anakin he's inside the Trade Federation ship, and it's like that point where all 3 points on the field are at a standpoint, and it looks like the good guys are about to lose or get captured. I always
Yeah.
found it interesting. Anakin is just chilling in a ship, going, "All right, well, thrusters are off. Don't know what to do." You think the droids would have killed Anakin? Do
Ooh,
you think that, or
that
would they take him hostage? I mean, they don't recognize him as a child; they just recognize him as a human threat.
I would.
Because I don't think they're programmed for that.
Are they? No, I don't think they are.
Because we look in The Mandalorian, I'm not sure how much you've seen of The Mandalorian, but when you
I
look back
I do know the
onto
flashback with Din Djarin. That
yeah, the
one
super battle
that
droids,
one
and
droid was about to kill him.
yeah, so I wonder
That
if it
is a
would have
good
had the
question.
same effect as Anakin.
Ooh,
I
that
always found
is a
that
good
interesting.
question. I may have to flip a coin on that one because I'm not sure.
Yeah, because we know Darth Maul's mission, like the Legends version, which I actually really want to be canon because I actually found that really fascinating. So I'd like to believe that Darth Maul wouldn't kill Anakin, just take him back to Palpatine. But when
Oh,
you come to the droids,
of
they're
course
not
you
under
know
the same
me.
program.
Yeah, of
Oh
course
yeah,
you know me. That's my canon. But yeah, hell, even like I said, even in the season 7 of the Clone Wars, he straight up said he's known for a long time, which
yeah.
would already imply that the Plagueis novel is canon, or it should be. But
And
back to the droids. Yeah, I'm not sure because because Maul was a secret assassin for Palpatine. He wasn't meant to be like stand out there leading the droids into battle. So I
Because I
don't know
don't
if
even
he
think
would.
Grievous knew Palpatine was Sidious. Like, that's secret.
Did he know?
Uh-uh.
He didn't.
Uh-uh. I don't even think Dooku knew.
That. Huh. Now you got me rethinking everything. Well,
Because you look in Revenge of the Sith, like, I remember reading the book, and I'm pretty sure it states that Dooku did not know that Palpatine was Sidious. And that when he kidnapped Palpatine, that was Palpatine orchestrating and allowing himself to get captured.
I do remember in the original script of Revenge of the Sith, and this was a change made by Christopher Lee, when Anakin has him has his sabers at his head, at his neck, when Palpatine's urging Anakin to kill him. I believe somewhere in the original script, Dooku was gonna plea for Palpatine to save me, like
Yeah.
help me, master.
Oh,
And
wait, no,
Dooku
you're right, you're right.
and Christopher Lee said like Dooku would not do that. I'm not going to say that. And it's better he just stays more in shock and in silence. Which
No,
I
you're right.
agree.
I'm
I
actually,
agree. That was a good change, you know. But
actually, no, I am mistaken. Dooku did know Sidious was Palpatine. Because now that you mentioned that point, I do actually remember strongly in the book now. Because as far as the book canon, that actually happened. Uh, Dooku actually tells Palpatine, he's like, "Oh no, uh, have mercy on me," and then Palpatine's like, "No, do it," and then that's when Anakin kills him. Like
do
it
it.
was going against the plan. And
Oh, you mean the plan to turn Anakin?
yeah, in Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah.
uh, but Sidious always intended for Anakin to kill Dooku, anyways. Um, but back to Darth Maul, like, I
We
really like Darth
digress.
Maul. We always digress, and there's just so much interesting stuff there. And we're like so close to the end of the film too, because I had a few points just with Darth Maul. Like, I always found it interesting. Like, if we did not have those dividers, how would it have changed the battle with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon going against Maul? Would
Qui-Gon would have survived for sure. He would have lived, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, uh, and then we see, but I mean that's one of the cool fights is being able to see Qui-Gon and Darth Maul do the duel. Because I always think back to on Tatooine when they first had the fight. I was like, okay, would they win a one-on-one? Because Qui-Gon kind of gets pushed back and jumps onto the ship. And why they didn't turn around and just start blasting him? Because I don't think Darth Maul would have been able to deflect those type of turbo lasers. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
but it, I think that kind of answers my question. Is they're kind of stuck here. He doesn't have Obi-Wan to back him up, and Darth Maul just outmatches him. And so we get to see a different side of Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan taps into the dark side a little bit, and I think that's why he was able to do so much damage to Darth Maul. And I believe once he gets knocked down into the pit and Obi-Wan's waiting there while Darth Maul's sitting there slashing his blade and taunting him, I think that's where Obi-Wan goes back to being peace and calm because he's starting to. He's like, okay, lightsabers over there, Qui-Gon's lightsabers over there. All right, I'm starting to be more calm and collected again, so I know exactly what I can do. Then he does that little flip, cuts him in half, and I found this really interesting. He runs over to Qui-Gon and picks him up, and first thing Qui-Gon tells Kenobi is, "It's too late." And so I'm like, "What do you mean it's too late?" Like, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering if
What did he
so.
mean by that?
This is kind of it might be a stretch, but this is just what I'm pulling in, like um, force healing.
Oh
So I
no.
think, well, it's in the books, but
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it is, and
uh,
it's also established in the Old Republic too.
yeah, and so I'm wondering at this point, it's like, okay, maybe they do know about force healing, and when Obi-Wan gets to him, Qui-Gon's like, "It's too late. Damage already. It's too late to heal me or whatever."
I
And
think to a Go ahead.
oh no, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think to a degree, like force healing in Star Wars can work, because as I mentioned, it was already established in the Old Republic. and I think also part of the reason healing was in those games was just so that the player doesn't die so quickly. That was just like
Yeah.
an easy, just to help the player along. But for in the actual lore itself, in terms of like books or shows, stuff like that, if one were to learn force healing, like if it is possible and it is established, even if I don't know if it's in the Legends continuity, I don't remember.
It
I'll have
is.
to,
There's a one specific Jedi. It's like think of it like different skills. Like you're strong in mind tricks, but you're weaker in other stuff. You're a strong fighter, but you're weaker in this. And then there's ones that are really strong in force healing and weak in other things. Let me see if I can try and find the name of the character because she's in the books with Obi-Wan. I know Mary Jade uses it on a stormtrooper in one of the books or comics, I believe.
yeah. So I think force healing can work to an extent, but I think in order to achieve such a powerful like just ability, should require like massive like heavy duty training on that power, and not just another simple lightsaber training routine with the little blaster orbs type thing. Like you need to like know what you're doing. Years and years of training with it. Like you can't just learn it on a dime, like how Rey did, with who was also trained by Leia, which still doesn't work because she was a dropout student and she wouldn't know much about being a full Jedi. So, but even like I said, to master force healing, I believe should require lots of like concentration, lots and lots of training, and should be only mastered by those who are purely like immensely strong with the force or have strength in the force, like Yoda level or Grandmaster Luke Legends level type powers. It should only be mastered by those who are powerful enough, who are immensely powerful, like even Revan type powerful. So
Yeah, I know
for
Kid Skywalker uses a format called Dark Transfer, and you
what?
could bring somebody from the brink of death. Kid Skywalker something called Dark Transfer. It's
Did
a dark side ability.
that makes sense, yeah.
Darth Crate was able to use it, and then Darth and Didu.
And Plagueis even does it in his novel. He kills his former master and brings him back from the dead, multiple times to prove that he had found a way to bring people back from the dead. So if you're able to bring someone back from the dead, I think healing a wound is possible. But I think there should be certain restrictions or certain limitations on how it can be used. Because
Okay,
as we know,
I found her
Plagueis,
name.
who was it?
There's a Mon Calamari Jedi Master under Luke Skywalker's Jedi. I think she was on the council. Her name is Sigal.
Seagal?
Yeah, she's one of Luke's first students.
That does sound familiar. I don't think I know what she looks like, or I don't know what. Yeah.
I'll send you a link to it on Instagram. But yeah, she was weak in the force, but the only thing that she was strong in was able to heal. That was like her only strength. But
Yeah.
she was weak in every other aspect of the force.
Yeah. So like I said, I think force healing should have those type of like guidelines or like certain limitations to it. Like it shouldn't be overused to like too much of an extent. Like even because like I said, because like we like even in the Legends continuity, I mentioned how Plagueis can bring people back from the dead. So it wouldn't be too much. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to heal a wound from someone who's already living, but it should only be mastered by those who have lots and lots of training for it and have years of experience, constant focus and concentration, determination. It cannot just be learned by any random Padawan, because Plagueis he was very immensely powerful, which explains why he was able to, resurrect someone. So it should be someone on the level of Plagueis, Revan, Legends, Luke, maybe even
Grogu.
Yeah, and all those people, that type of power should only people with that type of power should be able to master something like force healing or force resurrection type scenarios. So like even even if Rey was connected, since Rey is connected to Sidious, she only had 1 year of training from The Last Jedi to the Rise of Palpatine. That's what I like to call it. From a dropout student who only trained for less than a week, who dropped out because of her son. So there was nowhere there she had nowhere near had enough resources or time to master an ability that that great and that powerful. Even Kylo shouldn't have been able to bring her back from the dead when she quote unquote died, because those powers should be only mastered by people who are immensely strong in the Force and have had lots of training and discipline over the years, like maybe decades worth, to master something like that.
And I think in the case of Kylo, I think yes, he is strong in the Force, and because he wasn't skilled at it, that's what killed him.
I could see that. That's a possible justifiable reason. That's possible.
Yeah, for me that would justify his lack of training, because we don't know how much training he's had on it, but obviously he's not skilled enough to survive it. Maybe a little bit
that could help a little. That could be. I could see that. That may help a smidge, a little bit. But to digress back to Kenobi and Qui-Gon, even if because Kenobi was still just a Padawan about to become a knight, I don't think he was nowhere near the level of power or potential or training to learn an ability that great or that powerful. So even if he had got to Qui-Gon in time, I don't think he would have had the actual strength or power to heal his wounds per se.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when he said it's too late, that could imply that it's too late to maybe give him to a medical facility or something like that. That's what I may possibly thinking. I don't know.
Could be.
It could be implied in so many ways. I feel like there may be a deeper meaning to when he said that. I'm not fully sure, because I feel like it's trying to maybe, like I said, maybe apply something deeper than a Force heal. I don't know. Like I said, that's something we'd have to call up George. So with Qui-Gon, what Qui-Gon was saying it's too late, I feel like that can be implied in many different ways. And I really feel like the only person who could really answer that is George, unless if we're overthinking it or some.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's kind of a stretch, but I was kind of tying it in.
More of an our interpretation, unless George himself came out and said something.
Yeah, I mean, it's all plausible. It could have just been that too. It's okay, well, too late to get to the medical droids. Can't get me back to take the heal.
Yeah.
So it could just be something as simple as that. But it's always fascinating just to kind of think and speculate. Just oh man, did George have this idea or not? Hopefully one day we'll be able to beat him before he becomes one with the Force and be able to ask. I really want to ask him so many questions.
Oh, you need both. I have a full-on list of questions I want to ask him of canceled projects, certain aspects
I wonder how
of
annoyed he is.
universe. There's just so many things that what parallel universe did all the things that were canceled happen? Where's the Force Unleashed 3? I want to jump into that universe. Which universe did his sequel trilogy happen? I want to time jump. I want to Doctor Strange my way over there,
Yeah, seriously. And then just because we are running a little bit late, let's go ahead and wrap up. What'd you think of the final scene with not the final scene, but the whole Jedi ceremony of Qui-Gon being burned?
That one really had not deeper meaning. Well, maybe it did, more interpretation, but it was very cool. It kind of chilling knowing Palpatine was there, and Mace and Yoda were talking saying, there's only the Master and the Apprentice, and Mace said, who was destroyed, the Master or the Apprentice? And then the camera shifts over to Palpatine, and I know at the time, I believe, even to some people who I've seen react to it on YouTube, they didn't, when they first started getting into Star Wars, they had just finished the original trilogy. They don't know that Palpatine is Sidious yet. They really don't know. So when they see the camera shift over to him after Mace and Yoda have that talk about the Master and Apprentice, they're like, wait, why did it shift over to him? What's going on here? Is he hiding something? And knowing the type of uncertainty people had when that scene happened, or uncertainty about Palpatine not knowing who he was yet, really is a chilling moment, but a good type of like chill, sinister type, like, ooh, something is at play here. The seeds are being planted for the Jedi's downfall, and Palpatine,
Mm-hmm.
you're the person you're looking for is standing right in front of you, and you don't know it. It's a really, like I said, chilling yet sinister yet epic type moment.
Oh yeah, just like the music, just the lighting on everything. Mace, I believe, has his hood on,
Yeah.
and then you see Anakin standing next to Obi, and you can kind of see the motion go through them. Oh man, it's just kind of really cool. It kind of sets up for like the whole burning Jedi thing that Luke does that later in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, when he burned Vader.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, this definitely connects into the next series or the next episode, episode 2, which I'm really excited to discuss and be able to dive a little bit more into. So, guys, that is going to wrap it up for our transmission. Thanks for sticking along with us. Go ahead and talk to us on our Instagram page, DM us, or hit up one of our one of our pages, one of our posts, and then maybe I'll do a post about the Phantom Menace, and all you guys can jump in and discuss with us because we really want to interact with you guys as well. Be sure to like and comment. It helps people find us better and generally generates more activity for us, so we're able to get our names out there. Also, be sure to check out the links in the description where you can find our Discord, where you can chat with other fans like yourselves and discuss the mysteries of the Star Wars universe. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we continue to post updates, news. If you are looking for some new shirts that shows your love of Star Wars, we got you covered, guys. We have some designs that we worked on, and we know you guys will love. We're working on a couple other ones. Be sure to check out. We're going to be doing one for Return of the Jedi. I've got one that's going to be a special one for Kenobi. That's going to be a Celebration exclusive. And we got a couple other ones that we're excited to show you guys. So check out our Teespring below and tell your friends about it. I'm sure they'll love it as well. May the Force
be with you always.
always